Today we're very happy to have with us Aunie Brooks, and she is the Director of Talent Management for John Houston Homes and the John Houston family of companies. Aunie is a SAGU graduate, alum, graduating in 2004 with her Bachelor's of Science in Education and earned a master's degree from Dallas Baptist University in Educational Leadership. Aunie uses her knowledge, and I think this is very important, that uses her knowledge of education and her passion for people to help train and develop talent in her current role with John Houston. She's been married to her college sweetheart, Clayton Brooks, for 17 years, and they have 3 sons, ages 13, 9, and 7. So we're excited to have Aunie with us today. We want to welcome anyone who is viewing by live stream. We'll have the chat box open, so if you have any questions, at the end of her presentation, she will be having a time for Q&A. So if you have any questions, just include them in the chat and we'll get those to her. All right? So thank you very much, Aunie, for being here.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Ms. Beverly. Yes, it's wonderful to be back at SAGU. It's been a while since I was here, but I'm super excited to be here today and just share some hopefully very helpful information with everybody. So I know you're already thinking as a college student what's beyond college and looking for that perfect job whenever you get out. And I know that we spend a lot of time prepping people who are looking for a job. We spend a lot of time prepping them for interviewing at a company. You know, what are the types of questions that companies are going to ask? How do you prepare? You spend a lot of time trying to figure out, how am I going to appeal to the company? But a lot of times we forget about the fact that we have to interview the company just as much as the company is interviewing us. And so that's actually what I want to spend some time talking with you about today, is how can you set yourself up for success by finding the right place for you to work. We want you to be successful wherever you go, and a lot of that depends on where you end up and who's your manager, who are you working for, what are the goals of the company. So just a few things that you can do to do that when you're going in for an interview. One of the first things you should do is, instead of being so concerned with how you look and what you're going to say, open up your eyes and look around you as you're walking into the place that you're going to be working at. So take a look around. Look at, is it a cubicle setting? Is it an office setting? Do the people look happy? Do they look like they want to be there? Are they collaborating with each other? Are they talking and communicating? Or is it a very quiet environment? Only you know the kind of environment that you want to work in. You may want a very structured environment where people are quietly working at their spots and their cubicles. Look for that. You may prefer an environment where there's a lot of collaboration. It seems like teams are working together a lot. Look for that as you're walking into the place. Also look at the walls. You can tell a whole lot by looking at the walls of a place. So I'm in the Phipps Career Center right now, and I'm looking at the walls in here. It's bright, it's colorful. I see a mission statement on the wall. That is powerful. If you walk into a place and you can't see the mission statement anywhere on the wall, you have no idea what their core values are, what their beliefs are, that's a sign that this place maybe doesn't have a very clear mission. They don't have a very clear value that they support. If they do, it'll be on their wall somewhere. And so as you're looking through, look for that kind of a thing. Look for the brightness. Is it bright? Is it colorful? Do they care about the environment where the employees are working? And you can tell a lot just by looking at the walls and the cleanliness of it all. Also, be prepared for the questions that you want to ask. So many times when people are preparing for an interview, they are only thinking about the questions that they are going to be asked. And they're thinking, okay, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? I cannot tell you the number of times that I have sat in an interview as an HR director, and at the end, I've turned it over to the candidate and I've said, okay, what is your questions? What questions do you have for us? And it's amazing that there are so many times when the candidate will go, I don't really have any for you. Or they just have one question and it's a very literal question about the work schedule. That shows me that candidate hasn't really thought about what kind of place they want to work in. Do they even know if they want to work at our company? Or are they just looking for another paycheck? And so it's very, very important that you are really mindful of what place you want to work at and think about those questions ahead of time. Another thing is pay attention to how you ask the question. So one of my jobs and my responsibilities is to train our managers who work for John Houston Homes. One of my responsibilities is to train them on how to ask questions in an interview. And one of the things that we teach them is something called behavior-based interview questions. And what that means is you are trying to get the candidate to answer based on past experiences. How have they behaved in those situations in the past? Because if you just simply ask a question like, tell me your philosophy on working in teams. Well, anybody can answer that idealistically, right? They can just rattle off a really great answer on what it means to work in teams. But if you ask the question based on behavior and you say, tell me about a time when you worked on a really great team and what that looked like. Then it forces them to have to go, well, I worked on this great team and this is how it worked and this is what happened. And then you start to get an understanding of, can they work on teams? Do they have actual experience working on teams, and how much do they know? So you have to flip it around and do the same thing as a candidate. If you really want to know if the employer that you're going to be working for cares about their employees, if you really want to know if they care about the mission and the core values, you have to ask the questions a little bit differently. So for an example, if you wanted to know if are they an environment that's flexible with their work arrangements, right? In today's age, that's what we're looking for. We want flexible work arrangements. We want to be able to work remotely if we need to. And if that's something that's a value to you, instead of going in and saying, do you allow for flexible work arrangements? They might say, oh yeah, we can work with you. Okay, you might get one answer that way. Or you could ask it, does anyone on your team have a flexible work arrangement? Now you're going to see if they say, oh yeah, we have like 50% of our staff is on flex work arrangements. That gives you an idea of the environment that you're stepping into. Okay, they absolutely encourage flex work arrangements, so I'm going to fit right in here. If they say, oh, we have one person, and it's really just because of, accommodation that we had to meet, then you're going to know, okay, even if they give me a flex work arrangement, it's probably going to be really challenging for me to fit on this team if I'm on one and nobody else is. So just learning how to ask the questions really helps you a lot too. Okay, it's so important that you find a healthy organization, right? How do you know an organization is healthy? Well, again, I'm going to go back to, do the people look happy? When you walk through, do they look happy to be there? Do you know anybody who works there? If you know people who work there, ask lots of questions. Find out just how happy they are. Look at their benefits package. If they are able to provide a healthy benefits package, if they can do a 401k match, that probably means that they're financially healthy and that you're going to be able to go further there. Look for things, like I said earlier, a mission statement, values. If the person interviewing you doesn't come out and say what their mission and values are in the interview, that's a sign right there. I always tell our managers, make sure that they know the mission of the company before they agree to come work for us. Because if you really care about your mission, you want people to come work for you who care about it and want to be a part of that mission. And so look for that. If they don't even say it, that's a sign. But if they don't say it, ask them, what is it? If they have to pause for a moment to think of what it is, that's another sign that it may not be the healthiest organization. And then also just look at the overall interview and the onboarding process. Does it seem like they have systems in place? If it seems like they're kind of pushing you off to so many different people and it seems confusing, that's a sign right out the door that it could be a place that just doesn't have very clear processes in place and could be a frustrating place to work. So again, those are all things just to keep in mind and look for. The last thing that I want to talk about before I open it up to questions, if anyone has questions, is just a kingdom-minded business. And this may seem unusual or strange to some of you, and for others it may not. But one thing that I'm noticing more and more is there are a lot of business owners out there who are very passionate Christ followers, who love the Lord and see their job as a business owner to do something for the kingdom of God. They see it as a full-time ministry. And I would challenge every single SAGU student, whether you're a ministry major, whether you're an education major, or a business major, whatever you do, your work is ministry unto the Lord if you're a Christ follower. And so all of you are called into full-time ministry. And to find a business that allows you to use your talents and what you're called to do in a way that is going to introduce people to Jesus Christ or is going to make a difference in their lives or a difference in the kingdom, you want to find a place like that if you can. So a lot of people are familiar with places like Chick-fil-A, Hobby Lobby. Those are kind of the well-known names in our nation where they have a very kingdom-minded mission to reach people for Christ. But there's a lot of local places that do that too. And you just have to search. You have to ask those questions and find it. John Houston Homes and the whole JH family of companies, our mission statement is to reach people for Christ and give to the kingdom. We are very open about it. And we allow so many opportunities for our employees to be a part of that mission if they want. Now, I know a lot of times people who are in human resources, which I am, can kind of go, wait, how do you do that? Because you can't hire people based on religion, which is absolutely true, and we don't. Every time we hire a new employee, we always tell them, look, the mission of the company is to reach people for Christ and give to the kingdom. That doesn't have to be your personal mission in life to work for the company and to be successful there, but you have to understand this is the mission of the company, and so we want you to know and feel comfortable working at a place here. And so we have lots of opportunities for employees to be a part of it if they want. We offer missions trips and local outreach opportunities for employees to volunteer or to even give money to. The company donates a lot of the profits to kingdom-minded organizations like One Hope and a lot of local groups that are doing things to reach people for Jesus Christ. And so if that's important to you, man, look for it because it is out there. And I know a lot more business owners are seeing this happen and are getting encouragement and are wanting to do the same thing. And I would even challenge many of you, if you have an entrepreneur spirit and you are looking to start your own business when you get out of college, some of you probably even already have your own business now, because I know that's a really popular trend right now. Consider that. You can run a business and have the mission all about reaching people for Christ. There is a way to do that. And so you can create an environment for lots of employees to have a really amazing culture and mission to work for. So just, I guess I'll go ahead and open it up and see if there are any questions at this time. Are there any? Yes.
How do you foster that type of culture within your organization, or whatever the target of the culture is that you want to promote in your environment, and depending on the organization, what do you specifically do in your organization to foster that culture? Yeah, so the question is, what do I do in my role as Director of Talent Management to foster that kind of culture and environment where people can be a part of that mission? So there's a lot of things. So as the Director of Talent Management, I'm over the HR department. And so we provide a lot of opportunities for employees to participate in different things. So we have something called Life Teams. And Life Teams is voluntary, but different employees can sign up to be a part of one. And we go through a Christian-focused study on something. It could be a study related on leadership. It's something that helps them grow in their job as an employee, but also has a Christian focus on it. We use something called Right Now Media at work.
where everybody has a free subscription to Right Now Media at Work when they become an employee. And so a lot of times our live teams will go through a study that's on there. And it's in a small group, so it also creates relationship building across departments. So you get to meet other people in the company who aren't just in your department. And they pray together and just encourage one another. Of course, all that stuff is voluntary, but that's an example of ways that we encourage it. We have, like I said, there's different ways that they can volunteer. So earlier this afternoon, I actually was meeting with a high school student at Red Oak High School through Mentors Care. And so that's one thing that we really encourage among our employees is if they want to take time, take one lunch break a week and go meet with a high school student through Mentors Care and just be a mentor to them in the next generation. We really encourage them to do that. And we have a lot of staff who have stepped up to do that. And it's before COVID, we could go on the campus, and it was so fun because I'd walk on the campus, and as I'm walking on, I'd see 2 or 3 other JH employees walking out the door, and it's just neat to see the influence that our company gets to have right next door to these students who are really struggling and who need a mentor in their life. So there's a lot of ways like that we can foster and encourage that type of culture. And yes, again, even people who aren't Christians and who that's not their personal mission in life can still get behind things like that and want to get involved and want to help the community. Yeah.
So we often recommend that our students or whoever, they do some research before they go to the interview about the company. What do you think, what has most impressed you? What do you recommend they research about the company? How should they come and prepared from that aspect of it?
Yes, absolutely. So that's another great question. Oh, yes, I'll repeat the question. So the question is, what do you suggest to help candidates prepare for the interview in terms of knowing the company and knowing about the company, which I love that question because one of the questions I always ask in an interview is, what made you want to apply here? And I'll get different answers. Sometimes, and you can tell very, very quick if they just need a job and they just saw, on LinkedIn or they just saw on Indeed, the job posting and was like, oh, yep, I'm qualified. I want that. And then you can also tell the ones who have really taken time to research the company and who have something to say of, well, man, I was on your website and I saw that you da-da-da-da-da, and immediately I'm like, oh, they cared. They cared about the company. They wanted to learn more about it. And so absolutely, I strongly suggest that you get online, get on their company website, look on LinkedIn and see, who, if you can find the HR director, if you can find the manager who's interviewing you on LinkedIn and read up about them. The more that you come in prepared knowing about that manager, knowing about the company, and you can say, hey, I read online and saw that you used to work for da-da-da-da-da. That I find that fascinating. I would love to know more about that. That's going to tell that manager, oh, wow, they're interested in me. They're interested in learning more about me. They really care and they really want this job. Also, I want people to know that John Houston Homes is very involved in the community. And when someone comes in and says, hey, I really want to work here because I know how much you do for the community, and I just think that's great, and I want to be part of that type of culture. That means so much more to me. I'm like, okay, this person really wants to work here. It's not just about, okay, they fit the qualifications for the job, and they're hoping to get a job. So, yeah, great question.
So another question.
Yes.
So we have some students that are going to be brand new. This is their first job. But then we have some other students who they might have had a job or two, and so they're applying for a little more higher level. How would you recommend they prepare differently? Because obviously, let's say they're applying for a manager role or something like that, some type of lead.
Yes. So the question is, how would you prepare someone who's looking to interview for a higher role, so a manager position, maybe within the same company or maybe in a different company. Is there anything to do different? And I would say if it's a position in the company that you're already in, then you should be familiar if they have a set of leadership competencies. So at John Houston Homes, we have a set of leadership competencies that are different depending on the management level and the responsibility level of the position. And so we're going to ask questions based on the leadership competencies required at that level. So the more research that you can do to know, okay, what do they expect from leaders at this level, then you can kind of gauge what questions they're going to ask. And again, go back to experiences. Go into the interview ready to share experiences and stories, not just philosophical answers to questions. Philosophical answers can sound great, but what's going to really leave an impact is a story you can share, an experience you can share that shows you know how to lead, and you know how to lead people, and you know how to fit in the different competencies that they're looking for. So.
Is there a time you can tell us, of course without mentioning names, of someone who just almost did everything wrong?
The question is, can you tell us a time when someone did almost everything wrong in an interview without mentioning names? I don't know that I've had an interview where they did everything wrong, but I have had some interesting interviews. I will tell you, I think one of the funniest ones that has always stuck with me is I was interviewing a lady, and for some reason, she kept finding a way to talk about her cat. And she kept saying that she kept saying you can tell a lot about a person by how good they are with animals or how much they love animals. Like, it was almost like she was just trying to convince us that she was a really good person and that she just loves animals and animals love her, and so therefore she would be great with people, And I just kept thinking, don't talk about the cat again, So there are definitely interesting people out there. So that one has always stuck to me. I've definitely have had interviews where you can tell people are nervous, which is common and expected. And we definitely don't overlook people just because of nerves. But there's definitely been people who have just given just real quick, short answers, and then just that's it. And you have to really probe. Like I said, we train on behavior-based interview questions. So I've given questions. I remember this one particular individual who had a really impressive resume, and I thought, we're going to love this person. Brought him in, and every behavior-based question I asked, which was, tell me a story about a time, tell me an experience when you, and never once did he ever tell me a story or an experience. Every time he answered it with, well, I really believe that, and then told me some kind of philosophical answer. And I thought, well, okay, I know what's all in here, but I don't know what he will actually do because I have no stories from it. So that one was a hard one. It was, I would say, just go in ready to share experiences. You want them to know what you can actually do, not just what you can think of. And if you've never had a job before, share experiences from school. Share experiences from what you've done in your classes. Share experiences with what you've done in a volunteer setting. It doesn't have to just be what you've done in a career. There is another question.
Yes. So you mentioned nerves and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to be a nervous person. Is there any advice you have for how to combat nerves and come out with more confidence?
Yes. Okay. Harvard University. Oh, let me repeat the question. But she asked the question about nerves, and nerves are a very real thing. And is there any tips for calming nerves. And so, yes, Harvard University several years ago actually did a study that on this very thing. So they had about 10 candidates, and they went in for a real job interview, and they had 5 of the candidates. This is really funny and very simple. They had 5 candidates stand in what they call a Superman pose. So they just stood like this for a whole 5 minutes before they went into the interview. And the other 5 candidates, they just had kind of slamped and their shoulders closed in tight, and they just stood like that for about 5 minutes. And then they did a blood test and tested their hormone levels, and then sent them in for the interview. So they found that the ones who stood in the Superman pose were more likely to get hired for the job. They also tested the blood, the hormone levels in the blood, and found that those who stood like this, which is the stress hormone, and they had more testosterone in their blood, which gives them more of a competitive confidence. The others who stood like this had higher levels of cortisol, stress, and lower levels of testosterone. So it's the kind of the goofiest thing, but posture and the way you stand and the way you hold yourself really does a lot for your physical nature. So just standing in a really confident, strong, positive, I think that's my own phone that's doing that. Just by standing in a very strong, positive stance can actually boost your confidence and boost your competitiveness and lower your stress. So just stand like Superman for 5 minutes before you go into your interview, and you'll be fine. Any other questions? These are all great.
Okay, I didn't have any comment on the chat. So.
All right. Do you want me to close up, or will you close up?
Go ahead. Well, go ahead and give your final.
Oh, okay. Well, yes. So I guess if I were going to leave you with any final statement, it would just be above all, pray and just trust that God is going to lead you and direct you to where you're supposed to be. So, all of this, all my notes, everything I've said goes out the window if God calls you to a place, no matter how difficult it is. And, God can call a burning bush moment at any moment and ask us to do something that honestly we just really don't want to do or don't feel equipped to do. And He's leading and directing us. It's going to be the right thing, and it's going to be for His purposes and His glory. And so I definitely have worked in situations that weren't easy and knew God was with me the whole way. And so something at John Houston Homes that is, we are always going to make the best business decision possible unless God tells us otherwise. And so you follow these tips, you look for this stuff, but if God leads you elsewhere and the place is a mess and it's your mission field, God's going to bless it if He's called you to it. So that's all. Yeah.
All right. We just want to thank Aunie for coming and spending this time with us. And I do want to recognize, sorry, I didn't bring my cup up here, White
Yes.
Rhino, and thank them for being the sponsor of this Coffee and Career Chat. And be watching for more Coffee and Career Chats in the future. So thank you very much, Aunie. Great job.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.